Hey folks, I want to talk just a little bit today about the fundamentals of marksmanship. These are things you can apply with all firearms, and if you haven't had any formal instruction in this, this will come in handy because if you rehearse these certain steps and you learn these fundamentals, it'll help your shooting quite a bit. Now, there are different techniques. The fundamentals will remain the same, but I'm going to show you a couple of different techniques with the same fundamentals, the same base building blocks. The first is your stance. Now, basically, any of you in martial arts will know that you want to keep about a shoulder width apart with your weight slightly forward, your knees slightly bent, and staying erect, your upper body erect, and just slightly forward. This is a proper stance. Now, for an older technique, which I still use a lot, is your modified weaver, which is more of a boxing stance, which is 1 foot slightly back. All the other principles apply. The next principle that I'll talk about is grip. Basically, using this handgun as an example, you want to have a firm firing grip with the web of your hand all the way up. No meat behind the slide, and your other hand wrapped around the front to assist. Now if you look at the way my thumbs are going, they're not overlapping and tied up, they're both going forward. The more hand that you have, the more palm of your hand that you have on the grip, the more control you're going to have over that firearm. Additionally, you want to give an equal pressure with both hands. Now this will vary slightly with different firearms, rifle, etc., but I'm giving you the fundamentals here, and grip is number 2. Now also on grip, going a little more into technique, is, as I said, the modified weaver, which is a push-pull using the pressure of your hands. And basically you'll come up with your strong hand and use this non-shooting hand to produce a level of torque by bringing the elbow down like that. Another technique, a newer technique, which is excellent, is the modern isosceles technique. The modern isosceles technique is basically the same stance, pushing out, creating an isosceles triangle, and operating like that. Both effective, it's just how you train. Now I'll talk about the third fundamental, which is sight alignment. Sight alignment, and I'll put some diagrams in here to make it a little bit easier to envision. Sight alignment is the relationship between 3 things: the eye, the rear sight, and the front sight. Now, eye and eye relief will vary between firearms. Eye relief is the distance between your eye and the rear sight. The rear sight and the front sight should be lined up evenly, with the front and rear sights being level and the front sight being centered in the middle of the rear sight. If your front sight is higher, you are going to shoot high. If your front sight is lower, you are going to shoot low. If your front sight is here, you're going to shoot to the left. If it's here, you're going to shoot to the right. If everything else is wrong with your shooting, good sight alignment will see you through sometimes. So remember, sight alignment is that important. The next one I'm going to talk about is sight picture. When you have those perfectly lined up sights, the tip of your front sight post should be center of mass on your target, which for a man-sized target would be right about here. Why do we shoot center of mass? Well, if I move just as you're shooting at me, there's more of a chance that you will still be able to hit your target. This is the largest mass and the easiest to hit. Forget about all the movies you've seen where they shoot the gun out of the guy's hand or shoot him in the leg to keep him from running away. That's sight picture. The next fundamental is breathing or breath control. Now in the old days, this was taught on square ranges where you were down in different shooting positions and you concentrated on a target 100 to 500 meters away, and you took a breath in and you let the breath halfway out, and as you were letting it out you squeezed off your shot. Okay, that's important and that's good. But when you're shooting on the move and you're engaging targets and you've got body armor on or your tack vest or your backpack, you are going to be engaging quickly at different targets and moving. It's more important that you have control of your breath and have an awareness that if you take and hold the breath, you will start to shake. Okay? Additionally, if you don't have the level of cardiovascular fitness to match your activity, you are going to be shaking as you go. So breathing, breath control is important, and I want you to keep that in mind, but a lot of it is being able to have that cardiovascular fitness to engage as you need to. Okay, the sixth one is trigger control. Basically, when your sights are on target, then you put your finger on the trigger and you've decided to shoot, it should be a smooth, steady pull to the rear. It can happen that quickly, but it needs to be a smooth, steady pull. You also need to have just before the first joint, halfway between the first joint and the tip of your finger on the trigger. If you have too much trigger, you will pull one way. If you have too little trigger, you will pull another way, and you'll pull your shots off target. So keep that in mind. Also, there's a lot of emphasis for safety on keeping your finger off the trigger. That will give a lot of people the bad habit of slapping the trigger. Slapping the trigger as you fire around, boom, and you go back to here. You fire around here, boom, back to here. You need to keep it on the trigger as long as you're engaging. The meat of your finger should be on that trigger as long as you are engaging. Bam, squeeze off a shot, let off enough to set the trigger for the next shot, bam, again, let off, bam, again. The seventh and last fundamental that I want to teach you about is follow through. Follow through is maintaining all of the above until your shot has hit your target. Now, let me give you an example of not good follow through, and perhaps that'll help explain it better. A lot of times, especially with a handgun, you'll see people hitting low on the target. And if you watch them shoot, what they're doing is they're firing, boom, and looking. Firing, boom, and looking where they've shot. So that round, that barrel is only that long. That round has not made it out of the barrel yet, and they're looking to see where they've hit. So you want to maintain your stance, your trigger control, your sight alignment, your sight picture, your breathing. That's follow through, and it's essential, and it'll assist you in picking up your second shot and the following shots. Now, I've talked a little bit mostly about the handgun, but I just want to give you a quick example with the long gun, just so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. Okay, going back to stance with the long gun, I said basically there are two popular ones. The older style, which is the modified Weaver stance, and the more modern isosceles. Alright, now in the old days when you were taught to shoot, you would be taught to bring this shooting hand elbow up to create a pocket here. That is correct, and that does work great. But teaching and learning tactical shooting, you want your elbows down and tucked so you're not clipping along and hitting the wall and as you move. For the modified Weaver with the rifle, it's basically like this, and you are using those elbows down and in to create a tension, to create a pull into your shoulder. Only slight variation would be the newer isosceles, and with that you're extending out your non-shooting hand to actually pull in the firearm into your shoulder and to work the firearm. Now, there's some variations on that. A lot of people will have their grip as normal. Some people will do their grip point forward. And some people will do their grip C-clamp over the top. Whatever works with you, experiment with all three. Just some notes on that. Thanks for your time and stay safe.